Build Insights, where we chat about all things related to home building costs. My name's Nadine, I'm the Principal Architect at Make Architects, and I'm meeting with Rian from Investpool today.
Morning.
And we are chatting about building cost. This is something that we deal with on a daily basis. We have people who want to build a home and need to understand what they can afford, and they need a way to understand that. So Rian, you and I know that a square meter rate is extremely misleading to use, but I get asked that question all the time. What is the current square meter rate building cost? I'm sure you deal with it too. So I think let's just start, and can you explain to us why a square meter rate is not an accurate measure of building cost?
Yeah, I get that question on a daily basis as well. There's a big misconception out in the market that there's a fixed building rate per square, and when a client wants to build a home, they need to go and find a builder that's got the cheapest rate per square, and that's bollocks. A rate per square is eventually calculated through what is in that build. So what are we building? Are we building a glass house? Are we building a multi-story house? Is it a single story? Is there steel? Whatever. So the correct way of doing it is to set up a bill of quantities. So that is the items that goes into that house, and then you cost it per item. Once you're done, you'll have a 360 view of the cost of that project, and then obviously you can calculate a rate per square, and that will be project specific. It is not something that you can transfer between projects. I mean, it's unique per plan, per building. Yes.
So essentially, what Rian is saying, what I understand, and obviously I'm in the industry, so I understand it, but essentially your building is unique, and every item is quantified and measured. A cost to carry that out is attached. That's all added together, and that's where we get to the building cost. So if I want to now build a house, what are the main factors that would impact that building cost?
Yes, so I always, when clients ask me that, I sort of respond with the following sort of questions. And there's a couple of main categories. The first category influencing that number is where are you building and what is the conditions. So is it a clay soil? Is it in the sticks? Is it in the estate? That will all influence that price. The second one is the design and the structure. So we all love Pinterest, and in the evenings we lie in bed and look at Pinterest photos, and then when we want to design our own house, we maybe end up with a steel structure on stilts that's built out of glass. Now that influences price. So the type of material and the design is critical. Are we using slabs, normal roofs, and so forth?
I think I just want to jump in there. So within the building industry, there are standards and conventions, and obviously the more conventional items you use that you can buy off the shelf at builder's house, warehouse, the cheaper it is. And then also, just in terms of the structure, obviously the larger the openings are, the more structure there is. You need the structural engineer. It's either a concrete beam or it's a bigger steel beam. That adds to cost. Glass is more expensive than a brick wall. That adds to cost.
Yes.
So the more complex the structure is, the higher the cost to actually build the structure.
Yes.
Okay, what else would you say has an impact?
So what a lot of people do when they quote rate per square, where they sort of catch the client is on the finishes side, and this is what clients do not understand. Now when we do initial costing, it is impossible for us to determine what finishes is going to be in that home. So we will have to provide PC amounts. So let's say for instance your flooring, we say we allow 250 Rand per square for floor tiles. The client haven't made a decision yet, but we sort of have to have a number for that bill of quantities. And finishes is a massive, massive cost driver. I would say finishes makes up about 40% of that bill, and that is a factor where someone can really manipulate the cost, or a client could overspend immensely based on the decisions they make. If you walk into, let's just say, a small little bathroom, there's a basin, a tap, flooring, a toilet, lights, towel rail. There's so many items that you need to eventually select and install, and that could determine, or well, that it's got a huge influence on price.
Okay, yeah, I've also seen that. So I've also seen bills where a contractor will seem cheaper, but then when you actually go and look, he's allowed 50,000 Rand for a kitchen, or
Yes.
he hasn't, he's allowed like 50 Rand a square meter for tiles. So PC sums are super important, and I think it's something that we can chat about maybe in a whole separate video, just to explain PC sums. But PC sums are essentially where you haven't made a decision yet, because when you design a home, you start at a macro scale and then you work down to the micro scale. And at the point normally where you get plans, you haven't chosen floor tiles, you haven't chosen your kitchen. So it's important to understand that those sums are actually like allowances that you get to go and spend, and it's super important to make sure that they are adequate. But it's also, like you say, it's really where people can really overspend, and one has to be super vigilant in terms of your budget to ensure that those sums are adequate. I mean, I know you guys, we're sitting here in your beautiful Floornement showroom. I don't know if you just want to tell us a little bit about how you as InvestBuild handle the finishes side through Floornement.
Yeah. So I just want to take one step back. What is important, and a tip to clients, those PC sums must actually be provided from the architect to the builder that's going to do the costing, because the architect was involved with the costing from ground zero with the client, and the architect will have a very good idea in terms of the type of finishes and overall look and feel that the client is after, based on the design discussions that they had. The client is not a subject matter expert, so they wouldn't be able to provide the guy that's doing the bill of quantities with that type of information. It is something that has to come from the architect. I know you guys are very good with that, and you provide all the relevant info for then that project to go out to tender.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I've done that in my office is just because otherwise I send out, we do a tender, 5 builders, each builder gives me different PC sums. So to try and make comparisons easier, we've provided written specification and written documentation. But again, that's why super important who people choose to work with. Not all architects are going to do that. I don't know, I haven't come across that many that do it. But super important to compare apples with apples. But yeah, so back to
Floornement. So Floornement is a design studio. That's where we're sitting now, that we have invested in as part of our group of companies, and it's a specialist finishes store, and it ticks a couple of boxes for InvestBuild and its clients. Number one, it will save the clients a lot of time in terms of running around and choosing finishes and making decisions. I often, all our clients basically get to a stage where they get decision fatigue. It's just too many options, decisions, items they need to choose. So Floornement really helps them with that in terms of the final decisions. Another benefit is then a preferential pricing model that we have in place for our clients when they build through InvestBuild. Floornement gives them preferential pricing, so they can save on those items and maybe up-spec within the same budget.
Because I mean, those finishes typically, I mean, I've had projects where finishes make up more than the 40%, but so on 40% of your project to get preferential pricing really is a great a win for a client.
It's a win for them and for us. And the third element, you know how many moving parts there is on a construction site, and I prefer to be in control end to end and take the responsibility for everything that's happening on site. And through Floornement, then we have the backup of the suppliers and manufacturers, and we are responsible. There's one guy that you phone, and that's me, and I sort it out.
Okay, awesome. So in terms of factors that affect build cost, we've got stand conditions, we've got design and structure, we've got finishes. Is there anything else that clients should be aware of that can add to that building cost?
Yes, there's a lot of, so that square per meter myth. So you've got a price and then square meters that you get, that's in the calculation, how you get to that number. But there's a lot of elements in a build that does not add square meters but have to be done. For instance, boundary walls. I've had a lot of clients that buys very big stands or get it on an auction for a good price, and then they come and sit with me, and that cost just for the boundary wall is R1 million. It's something that they never factored in. And then obviously being South African, we love being outdoors. So now people have a deck, a pool, a boma, landscaping. These are all very high cost items that adds to the price but 0 square meter value. And that throws out the number as well.
Okay, Rian, so just to recap, so the 4 factors that you've mentioned that have an impact on building cost are stand conditions, the design and structure, finishes, and the additional elements that you've just mentioned now. Fantastic. I think that paints a fairly holistic picture of everything that actually goes into the cost of building a home. So if I'm now setting out and, I'm excited, building a home is very exciting. It's your dream home. It's something a lot of people want to do. It's certainly something I would love to do. How do I now determine my budget? I mean, I know that, so all those factors obviously do add up. And if we do take the area of the house, they do spit out a square meter rate. Obviously, as an architect, I understand that maybe the kitchen is more expensive and the garage is a lot cheaper, and it all averages out. So if I'm starting out, the question is, how do I say now I need to do a 300 square meter house? I sort of think that's what I need. How do I determine what my budget should be as a starting point?
Yeah, so it would obviously be, it's an estimation, and it would have to be derived from looking at the correct data and speaking to the right people. So if you add an architect that understands building costs, and unfortunately not a lot of them do, because they want to design for portfolio and not for keeping a budget in mind. So you need the right data. You need an architect that understands more or less what building elements costs. And it would be a good idea to get a good construction company involved from the word go, just to give input, give some optimization suggestions, maybe on costs. If you guys design, let's say, a cantilever staircase, it can give you 1 or 2 more options to save money, but still stick within the greater design. So I do that with my clients. I sit with them before we start to make sure that the project can actually realize. What is very interesting about our office, I would say 50% of everything that we cost never gets built in that original format. It's always back to the drawing board. So you're going to save yourself a lot of time and money and effort if you do this correct round 1.
Okay, I know this is something we deal with a lot in my office, where yes, we do want to, we want to be creative. We want to design a beautiful building. Clients have been looking at Pinterest or home magazines. Home magazines have beautiful pictures, but they never mention the prices.
Yes.
So, what I'm doing in my office is we're actually building a cost estimating model. It's been an interesting exercise because we've also realized that we don't always understand the cost of what we're designing. So we are trying to educate ourselves in that so that we can guide clients correctly. I do know that ACOM, they're a big, massive company, publishes an annual report. And as a starting point, I often refer to that because that's based on real-time data, and go, okay, as a starting point for an estimate, this is the budget I think we can use based on those square meter rates. However, we need to get a cost estimate very early on in the design phase, which is what we then are aiming to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, your clients will then get a lot of value out of your service and offering, because that is exactly what you need. And it makes, for us, it just makes our process much easier when we get handed the client that they educated, they know what they're in for, and once we give them the final bill of quantities, it's more or less within their expectations that they had for that project. Yeah.
Rian, so I want to conclude. So can you give us, what's your biggest tip or piece of advice you can give clients with regards to building cost?
I would say that clients must make an effort to try and understand building costs and be realistic in terms of what they want and can afford or actually want to spend. And surround yourself with people that really understand these costs and elements and the costs associated with design. And make sure you've got the correct data at hand to be able to make those calculations.
Okay, thanks, Jan. I think that was informative. If you've listened to us, thank you so much. Please follow. We're going to do a video every month. If you have topics that you'd like us to discuss,
Yes.
please drop one in the comments. I've created a land buyer's guide. So that land buyer's guide will have some of the elements that will add to your building cost. If you want to download it, we'll put the link down below. And please check out Rian's website is www.investbuild.co.za. Mine is www.make.co.za. We both have different resources available to you to help you on your journey of building your dream home. Thanks
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, Rian.
Have a good day.